Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Good News in Parks. We are so excited to see you here today. This is the show that is created especially for park and recreation professionals, where we bring them together on our panel and in our audience to share ideas, best practices, and good news. I'm Anne-Marie Spencer, and I am excited to co-host this show with the amazing Jody Adams. I think we can all agree this year has been like no other, and parks are valued by communities more than ever. So it's really important to connect and support each other. It's hard to believe this is already the 6th episode, and we are so excited and humbled about how this first season has gone so far and the great feedback that we receive from you. We continue to learn from you, our audience, so your feedback and participation has helped us grow the show, and we're excited to let you know that, as always, we're incorporating what you tell us you want to see into this week's show. We heard you that communities of all sizes need to be represented, including small ones. So this week we have 2 county directors representing communities of every size, as well as our first guest from Canada, another audience request, representing a community of just about 6,000 people where they are doing some amazing things. So please enjoy our hour and 15 minutes together, take part in our polls and post-show surveys, and use the Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom screen to ask questions for the Q&A session at the end of the show. Thank you again for being here. Jody, let's meet the panel. I think you're muted, Jody.
Yeah, she's muted. That's live.
There we go.
We are so excited about the show today and our panelists. Oh my gosh, we've got a packed full show. So let's go ahead and get into the introductions of our panelists. Laura Wetherald, the Bureau Chief of Recreation, Howard County Recreation and Parks Department. She's also a fellow member of the American Academy of Park and Recreation Administration. And also she's a commissioner of the National CAPRA and Commission of Accreditation for Parks and Recreation Agencies. Laura, so happy to have you. And number 2, Lakita Watson. Lakita is the Executive Director of Richland County Recreation Commission, Chair of the National Recreation and Park Ethnic Minority Society. She's also past Chair of the National Recreation and Park Association Leadership Development Network. And then finally, we are so excited to have Lakita as a new fellow member of the American Academy of Parks and Recreation Administrators. Welcome, Lakita.
Thank you, Jody.
You bet. And then Rachel Bedingfield. Oh my gosh, we're so excited about to have our new international guest on. And she is the director of Town of Kentville, Nova Scotia, Canada. She's the Canadian Women and Sports Awards winner. She's in the top 25 most influential women in Canada for sports and physical activity. And she's also a member of the Canada Parks and Recreation National Parks Task Force. So we are so excited to welcome our first international guest panelist. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much. I'm excited.
You betcha. And a little bit of national news, just a little bit of recognition here. You know, to all of our fellow colleagues, our hearts go out to you on the West Coast, South, and East Coast. Right now, we know you're enduring not only devastating fires and also hurricanes, but we know the good news is you have the experience, you have the endurance, and you know how to approach and get through these challenging times. So just know, stay strong, we're with you, and we do recognize that you are going through this. And second of all, the passing of our RBG. I just want to tell you, we all know that our Supreme Court Justice of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, what a hero. She was so wonderful for our country to ensure and fight for not only equality, but equitable justice for all. And we are so fortunate that we had her in our lives and in our societal, well, not only minds, but hearts to take the best forward for all people in our country. I want to leave you with 2 quotes from her. Real change, enduring change, happens one step at a time. We all know that. It's key. Number 2, I want to make sure that we all think about this from the heart. If you want to be a true professional, do something outside of yourself. That's why, and that's what you see on this screen. We have professionals that have gone outside of their thinking that what they can accomplish. They are amazing. So again, thank you ladies for being on the show, and let's jump into our first question. We know in technology that in our lives, we've gone from going online to living online. The average person today checks their handheld device 155 times a day, maybe more. The average person also spends 177 minutes per day on their handheld device. Think about it, 2 hours and 57 minutes. Well, here's our question, ladies. Technology is the name of the game right now. And part 1 and 2 here. What adjustments have you made in your departments to deal with the current status of the pandemic successfully? And how are you looking at it, working with technology and putting it in positive nature for the future within your departments? And let's go ahead and start with you, Laura.
Okay, great. Welcome, everybody. First of all, programming. It used to take us six to 9 months to put programs together, then get them and our guide and everything. That changed very quickly. We started offering virtual programs and Camp in a Box and all types of programs within a couple weeks, or to a month. But one program we started within 2 weeks, and that was our emergency childcare program for essential workers. And that was incredible. That really helped folks who were police officers working at the hospital, fire. So we can do it in 2 weeks, but it's certainly nice to have that amount of time to prepare. Then facilities, when they finally opened up, we started using a reservation system for getting in because we needed to maintain capacities. So we started a reservation gym or a pool or our fitness room that you had to sign up on an hourly basis. And it impacted that. After we looked at the evaluation of that, we've already changed some of the facilities to an hour and a half to work out. So that makes everybody happy. Also, our payroll system. Before COVID started, we were all ready to go with Kronos, which was an online payroll system, but it stopped right when COVID started. Well, it's back. Not a good time to be back, but it's back. And it does make sense that we would be virtually doing payroll. So that just started back up. I think everybody's happy about it. This is going to take a while to get used to it. Also with our service contracts, at any given time during a year, a regular year, we'd have about 250 service contracts or contractors doing work for us in programs. And we finally, a team was put together to get a DocuSign problem fix where we could use DocuSign as opposed to scanning and sending the document to so many different people. That was a huge, huge turnaround. Also, our summer trainings all went virtual. We took our manual of 11 different components and a whole team got put together for that to create that training for summer. So everybody that ended up working in the summer were trained virtually. Also, our junior counselor program in the summer ended up, they would usually have a week of Recreation and Parks University where they would learn how the field works before they would go out and work. This year, it was all done virtual. Also, WebEx. The county that I'm from was requiring us to use WebEx for everything, but we found very quickly that our contractors really wanted to use Zoom. So we actually pushed it, and now the part-time employees who work for us and the contractors can use Zoom, which is a much easier format, but we still have to use WebEx for our meetings. So that was a very good compromise. Also, our marketing immediately went into using our ActiveNet target markets and constant contact because every week we continued to provide things that weren't in our original guide and changes to that. Also, we have been providing almost every week, now it's almost every other week, a COVID update for staff so they can see everything that's changed in the past and everything's new is in red so they can have a running record of everything that's happening. Also, we allowed an A-B schedule for staff to work from home and telework, and that started back in July, and it's working really, really well. And right now it's going until almost the end of October. We strongly had to look at the budget. We're very revenue driven, as we need to be, but we had to really look at what we were going to offer did need to at least meet our level 3, which is cost recovery. And even though our original goal was 120 to 140% cost recovery, but we also have been looking at how to handle free and subsidized programs, still providing our scholarship program, still looking at social equity and looking for grants and partnerships to do those particular activities. We were running a rec zone program this summer. That was our summer childcare, and we were able to get care funds that allowed us to drop the price over $150. That allowed parents to pretty much pay per week what they would have been paying for 7 to 9 and 3 to 6. That was a huge change. And also food was able to be delivered. We never had food in our programs that we didn't provide, but we worked with the school system, and digitally, we have a staff member now assigned to that, taking the orders every day and then determining what food's going to come to the programs we have in childcare. That's what I have for that.
Oh my gosh, this is so great. You have gone through your whole structure, through your whole organization at every level with technology. Way to go, because boy, not only are you trying to run the organization, you are analyzing every move at every turn. Way to go, Laura. Let's go ahead and move to Lakita.
Thank you, Jody, and hello everyone in the viewing audience. It is truly a blessing to be here on this platform. So Laura, you did great. I was over here, and I'm hoping everyone taking notes
Yeah,
for those things that we didn't
Exactly.
do. So I won't repeat all of those wonderful things, but it makes me feel really good to know that I'm doing some best practice things, because Laura just described so many great opportunities that many parks and recreation professionals jumped right into. But I will share with you, for us with technology, our first thing was updating all of our membership files as well prior to opening back up to the public. Now, we did do the phased approach, as Laura talked about, and work from home. We had our first telecommuting policy that had to be established after we left out, getting the board on board. I work for a special purpose district, so it's a little different from municipal government. And I became like the mini city manager. So it was definitely different going through this pandemic as the real leader and providing the governing body with that guidance, because none of us had been through it before. So I think that what was important for me was having a strategic team of employees that served on the emergency management team for our agency. We had not established that before, so we established that. We started reviewing all of the policies, because once you are out and then you have to come back in, what does that look like? What does pay look like? What does your status, if you're an alpha or a beta or non-essential? Because I've only been here for 18 months, and I know a lot of you know that. So this was my first crisis, and I was just so thankful for being able to go to the NRPA website and pull off a plethora of toolkits. Another thing that we did, we have reevaluated registration for programs. As Laura stated, we had to look at it from not only that individual coming in, how can we bring families in safely? And we opened our pools, and that's what we did. We allowed families to get an hour or 2 hours together in the pool, and limited the numbers of individuals based off of the regulations that had been put out by our health regulators. So our citizens were so appreciative, because we couldn't have camp, but they were able to come in and register to have access to the pool. And then we did the same exact thing with tennis, with families registering. So it created a more family focused programming aspect for us, something that we had barely scratched the surface of. So I see that staying with us, encouraging families to come in and use facilities together. And it's worked very well. And last but not least, we reevaluated the way that we did business. And our seniors are out there, and we know that particular age group, that demographic, was more susceptible to COVID-19. So it was very difficult trying to figure out, how do we re-engage them? So we called them, we had staff calling them, talking to them. Average phone call was about 8 minutes for most of them because they missed the socialization. So we created a couple of things for them, and one of the main things was our senior parade. So our seniors were able to come through our community centers, drive through, and receive care packages. See, we do those things for our young people all the time, but our young at heart deserves those opportunities. And last but definitely not least, we did the Rec and Go. We incorporated opportunities for families to come through and receive supplies for recreation because we did not have summer camp. So I see we have now established, I think, a procedure on how to move forward in case we are put in this position again, but we know it's here to stay for a while. So we're just trying to learn the best lessons and pull from great individuals like yourself so that we can make the best decisions for our citizens. And my last thing is, of course, I report to a board. So Zoom was very interesting when you're trying to coordinate that with individuals that are off-site. Some may not be as savvy with technology, but we were able to pull it off like most people. And now we back into incorporating citizen input, even though we're not able to do the in-person meetings, which now makes the citizens feel better because they were disconnected.
Well, and that's so important because they personally were learning too. So it's really benefiting everyone. You know, Lakita, I just want to compliment your department. I actually, all of you, I look at your departments and I'm tracking what you're doing, and I'm telling you that game plan, oh my gosh, if you go on your website, on the Richmond web, oh my gosh, it was so great to see the new brochure you have out called Game Plan.
Yes.
And then it goes into services that you offer online to order up or go to a certain location. But the way you've done that is so professional. So folks out there, I would highly suggest go to the website, because Lakita and her staff has come forward with a very appropriate timing on this brochure called Game Plan. So congratulations on that. But
I will share that with my team.
Well, and the other thing is you've developed something in real time. You know, this was something you all have endured all of a sudden.
Yes.
But you know what? When it's all done and said, you've lived it. You've lived it. So that is going to be a very solid document that you all have developed. Great. Rachel, we are excited to know what Canada is doing, and what are you doing in your community?
Yeah, well, I'd like to say I speak for all of Canada, but I didn't get elected, so I'll this one small part of Canada, and I don't know if for those of you who live in Canada or if you've been paying attention to Canada, the response to COVID has been different depending on where you're at, essentially. So in Atlantic Canada, we're still closed off from the rest of Canada. So in this province, our response started in March. So immediately people were told to go home, don't kind of leave your neighborhood, you know, start to, we shut down all of our parks, all of our trails, everything was shut almost immediately. And including all of our staff, we were sent home, and I would say that we met over the platform at least 3 times a day. We had team meetings a few times a week. I met with individual staff almost, every day. And much like what Lakita and Laura talked about, we went online. So, you know, our fitness class, our fitness instructor was doing things out of our living room. We wanted to keep that community engaged. We started having workshops. You could actually register for workshops, whether it be wood whittling or knitting or something you can still learn in your own community. Or in your own house, sorry. And we started to kind of assess where our community was, and COVID wiped everything out for us. And it was a real chance for us to take a step back and say what has been working and what hasn't been working, probably more importantly. And it was an opportunity for us to kind of redesign the way that we deliver our services. And so for us, that meant if people can't come to us, then we are going to do everything we can to them. So we knew that people could recreate in their living room.
That's good.
We knew that they could recreate in their neighborhoods, and some folks have access to a yard. right, a space. Not everybody, but some folks do. So knowing those three pieces, we kind of focused on that. So we wanted to get people outdoors as much as possible. So we asked our communities to put up art in their window, write positive messages, put it in the window, and then people would go around and they would take pictures of the art. They would go on community art shows and they would take pictures, they would send them to us, and we'd put them into a draw for a prize that was sponsored by one of our local businesses. So we also wanted to support our businesses. We would buy the gift card from them to give back to the community.
Wow.
So that was actually quite popular. Slowly, as things started to open a bit more, then people were allowed to kind of go a little bit further. So we started to, but people were still really nervous. They're really nervous about this. There is this kind of invisible threat that's out there. So we wanted to make sure that people were comfortable. One of the things that we noticed right away is that there was all of a sudden everything was moved to online. And when we talked to our community, that was really overwhelming for a lot of people because there's so much on Facebook. And then you're hit with all these ads and things, and you can't really control the message. And it was causing more anxiety. So we started to move everything over to our website where people could control what information they were getting. So that was kind of the first adjustment we did. The next thing we did is that we needed to make sure that people could recreate with what they have in their house. So we have an equipment loan program where the parents purchased a whole bunch of equipment. We implemented a sanitizing policy. So we took over a facility that was closed and had different zones in it. And people could give us a call. This is the games back to, I think it was Lakita, you were talking about how families really came together. Parents wanted things to do with their kids, so they would book this equipment, and we would actually have staff go and deliver it to their house. We brought it directly to people to make sure that people had what they needed. So it was this real outreach. And I acknowledge that we have a very small community, around 7,000, but this was a priority for us. When we started planning for our summer programs, we also put all of that planning into a course. So if you, again, back to the first responder piece, if you were someone who had hired an in-house care person, you could sign them up and we would meet with them once a week so that they could essentially run our camps for the kids that they were meeting. And eventually we started to open up, and we were able to run camps, but they had to be limited capacity. Every Friday, public health would come up with different updates. It ended up like Friday was kind of a little bit anxiety because all of a sudden the trails were open and we're like, oh my gosh, we have to get out there and take all the I'm just looking what else we did. Probably one of my favorite things, and I do want to mention this and then I'll stop talking, is I had this amazing staff this summer, and we decided that we wanted to respond to our partners. So our department has done a lot of work with connecting with organizations that work with folks that are struggling, whether that's youth, whether that's seniors, whether that's mental health, whether that's a women's shelter, whatever that is. And we reached out to them and said, what do you need? And immediately they responded. They said, we need something to support the mental well-being of the folks who we service. And so we created at-home leisure kits. They're called play kits. We had to, branding. And they signed up, and we essentially put together kind of like a play basket of things that would be incorporated that they could not only do, but actually encourage them to get out into their community, feeling comfortable, using that whole leisure education lens so that they, at the end, would have sustainable skills that would last them a lifetime, right? So making sure that people are provided with a chance to have ownership over their own mental health. We delivered over 400 of these kits. Wow. And the targets were seniors, wow, families, and youth. And each of them had different components in it. There was a leisure ed kit, like an instruction manual in it. And more importantly, we had done something to support those service providers in our community who were at that time, just beyond stressed out with the increased need for their services. And so we were able to do that, which was fantastic.
Well, you know what? This is amazing because every one of you has mentioned services that are a little bit out from what of our norm, but now it's becoming your norm. And now we are so much more educated on what we can offer to our general public. So hats off to you all. Very exciting what you're doing with technology, but what you're doing online. This is just so important. And this question, again, has totally come from our viewers. Again, I want to encourage, Anne-Marie and I want to encourage all the viewers, when you do your evaluations, please write on their topics, because this is all coming from you. Let's move on to our second topic. Okay, now that things are moved it back, gradually opening up, we all know that we're better than what we were on working through the COVID-19. So with that said, how do you see both sports and special events returning to your community scene? We've touched a little bit on it, but let's go a little more in depth. And let's start with you, Lakita.
Well, I would like to share that it was very helpful for us. South Carolina, we had our state executive director had a direct access to what was called Accelerate SC. And that was the governor's task force for reopening our state. And I must say, having a voice in that process and developing that plan, a Parks and Recreation voice, was very important to our entire state. So we were able to work with that group, that committee, to develop what will sports look like coming back into our entire state. And we, as a state association, we had our own task force because we wanted to be consistent. That was very important for us. Where we could, we wanted to be consistent. So we actually had started our phase 2 of sports and sports in the beginning of July. And it was mainly our community leagues. We have a mix of both, as many communities have. And, you know, it was very frustrating for some of our parents. And we have to understand, with their students being out of school since March, going into the spring, going into the summer, how could we work with those leagues to ensure that they could safely do this? So we actually started in that second phase of reopening practices. So we started with practices, social distancing, masks, and then eventually we worked our way into games as we watched the data for the number of cases in our community. And I share with you, we are in a community that had very high numbers. So I was very afraid to do it, but we had to do something. And luckily we had minimal impact once we allowed the community leagues to start utilizing the fields. And we actually were able to end with an all-star game, which we did not think in March would have happened. But because we planned properly and communicated properly, we've been able to slowly bring our sports back in, working with our community, holding them accountable was very important for us, because as citizens go through look at our facilities, they want to know, okay, they're not wearing their mask, or they're not social distancing. So we really had to have a strong relationship with them to ensure that the optics were correct. So then we took and learned from them, and now we're starting to move towards skills clinics. We're not going back into full-fledged leagues, but skills clinics, which would allow us to still have that social distancing, as well as sanitation and no shared equipment. And lastly, special events have been moved to the parking lots. It's been really great in how we've been able to do that, but we're now moving towards our movies in the parks, and we've gotten a lot of good information from our previous, but we're now just going to have to, of course, make sure that we incorporate the new guidelines. But we see our special events and sports coming back, but recognizing and the modifications is very important. Parents want to know, how are you modifying this to ensure our safety? So we developed a plan for every sport, and we categorize them based on their risk, and then also added modifications for how you can bring those things back. And it helped us a lot, because it gave us actually some teeth as we work with the community to hold them accountable for their leagues and to hold my staff accountable. So we see us growing from this and actually impacting more people.
Well, what's great, again, appreciation for open spaces, but also parking lots, because it's amazing what you can do with a hard surface, and it's amazing what you can create, right?
Yes.
Okay, Rachel, let's go to you.
Yeah, Lakita, I loved your comments about how, you know, as we try new things, you actually see what is relevant even far beyond global pandemic, which is very good for your first emergency to take on. for for us, again, really, we just adjusted things based on public health guidelines. So sports were essentially shut down, formal sports, right? But it was a little bit of an opportunity to take advantage of all these facilities that I'm still paying people to maintain. I just want to point out, and say, listen, I know you're not in a registered soccer club, but the soccer fields are still there. And what we noticed quite quickly is that people didn't actually feel comfortable unless they were part of a program, and it gave us a good chance to kind of reassess our values in our community. So unless you can afford an actual sport, then you are okay to go on these facilities, which is not the message we want. So we started a bit of a campaign to say, listen, these facilities are here. We want you to get on them and we want you to use them within public health protocol. We had signs posted. And that was kind of the first reopening. And also, just because you're on a soccer field doesn't mean that you can only play soccer. You can also roll down and pick grass and do cartwheels and all these things and go fly a kite. So we really worked with that. Within our province, each sport has come up with its own return to play plan, and then that has to be approved by the governing body. So baseball, for example, was one of the first ones in our area, and they have to prove that this club that works in our small town has to prove that they have thought everything through with regards to sticking to the public health protocols. So our job essentially was, okay, so you want to access our facilities, let's see your plan. We're going to work with you to close the dugouts, take away the bleachers, whether it needs different markings on the field. We offered summer camps this summer. I do need to point out, everything went outside. We didn't even touch indoors. Everything went outdoors.
Okay.
We just got tents, and if it rained, we'd be there, but otherwise, everybody loves nature. And so we would make markings on the field so that kids would know which pod they were in. And we had safety officers at every single program and community event, and they were in our uniform and they had a clipboard, and they were there to encourage people and remind people that we need to social distance. And sometimes they would put visual markers down, so pylons in this area. So, you're coming with your family. Okay, this is your pylon. This is your. Wow. And what we realized is that people actually came to our events because they knew that we actually had paid attention to this, and they felt safer there. And even though everybody kind of has an idea about how big 6 feet is, it really was great to say, well, this is my pylon, so you have to this is my space here. And we just kind of got numbers in droves within the public health guidelines. And it was really great for those type of things that we did. And again, back to the facility design, we just ended up looking at every space and figuring it out. And as we learn more and more about the virus and how it's contaminated or transmitted, then we opened up playgrounds, which was a provincial order. We took a look at public washrooms and understanding that was an access issue. But we looked at everything from a lens of accessibility. Because, shocking to no one, during a crisis, be it a forest fire, be it a global pandemic, whatever it is, those folks in our community who are traditionally marginalized are even more marginalized. And so they were our number one priority no matter what. And that meant that we had to view everything as through that lens.
Well, a great approach. And thank goodness for your citizens that you were looking at it like that. Our last episode, we addressed some of those challenges and different items of people just with accessibility. And I think sometimes people don't realize that we need to put that in the forefront of everything we think about and do when we're not only in the outdoors, but also in indoor facilities. So thank you so much, Rachel, for pointing that out. That's very, very important. And Laura, we're back to you.
Okay.
Please tell us what you're doing.
All right. Well, first of all, I'm on a first name basis with the health director within the county. They wanted everything where something would come up as a question with COVID having to do with someone who could possibly be sick or whatever, to go through them. And then they would make the determination, handle it individually. So it's worked out well that way. And we feel much stronger saying this came from the health department, even though it easily could have come from us. So that's worked out well, and literally that happens every day. And the director calls us back every day, or some of her staff, so that's pretty exciting. First of all, the sports, we've moved forward both inside and outside with all of our programs. We started with outside first, and then we got into inside in early July. But all of our sports have moved forward except the close contact, which is basketball, tackle football, and wrestling. And these three sports are, though, participating through practicing and conditioning. Golf and tennis, pickleball, and actually virtual fitness is booming from doing very well. Probably tennis more than all of them. So that's pretty exciting. We had to add a lot of tennis programs. A unique piece is our baseball program that we started up. You know, it's nice to hear something good. Often during this time, people are sharing things that they're unhappy about. Mm-hmm. We had an email just yesterday and then another one this morning from parents from our baseball leagues for young children that started up. And she said, she was talking about her son. She said she was very worried about him. He was kind of getting depressed. He was very lethargic and she was really concerned. And so that had been going on for 3 or 4 months. Wow. And when we started the baseball, she said, in essence, I get chills saying it. It's like she said, we brought the family back together and her son is now happy. He gets to play with his friends that he had played baseball with. It was just such a feel good. I mean, that's a whole life experience changing. But she said, I was really worried about him. She didn't know quite which way to turn. And she didn't know if everybody else was feeling that way. And the cool thing, the person that runs that program is a volunteer under Brian Wyman, who's our sports supervisor. But he just won our volunteer of the year. So I thought, what? Oh, it was so nice. You know, it's like good things happen to good people. So we're just showering him with good news. We also have had incidents in wrestling with private organizations doing full contact wrestling, and we are not. And then parents saying, well, why can't we do full contact if this private organization is? And we learned from the health department, if they're on private grounds, they kind of can do what they want. So they said you can call the police and they may go out and educate them. But that was a real problem because your next door neighbor could be a part of this private group and they're competing up and down the East Coast in contact wrestling. So being transparent about what we allow, we're very firm about that and educating folks. And also, we've seen a lot on social media. I saw that the governor had a statewide hotline to report folks not following COVID. So we've been telling those parents in wrestling to call that number. We can't do anything but here, let the governor know.
That's right.
I'm not sure what's happened on that end, but it's probably not good that I just shared all that. But look, the governor posted the number, so it's for everybody. Special events have taken a big hit. We usually run a huge wine festival. We were on our 28th year, and that had to cancel. That just broke all of our hearts, but we canceled it very early, so we were able to save a lot of money in expenses because we knew we were going to lose a lot in revenue. Also, our holiday events, we had a Holiday Mart event that we've been doing probably almost 45 years. That has gone virtual. For over a month, people can get on and they'll look at our kind of online store. And Christine DeGioia, who is one of our special events staff, put that together. And it's just so cool to see that. I'm thinking, how are we going to do Holiday Mart? And then our trunk or treat event, that now has turned into a smaller event. We'll still have all the trucks. The kids can't get in the trucks, but they can take plenty of pictures, and you have to sign up in smaller groups and have an appointment. So we will, for those folks who do want to venture out and do get dressed up and do want to see all the trucks that we have, that's still happening. So that felt good. And then our daddy-daughter dances, I heard yesterday from our Cracker Jack program staff, they're looking at not doing the daddy-daughter dances, but putting together a bag like we've heard, like Camp in a Day and a Camp in a Box, doing some things for that. They're even trying to figure out if they could actually send food to every parent that get somebody to donate that. So that's a big thing that it's an annual event that And we also, yes, we also have a mommy son as well. So they're looking to transform that into virtual. And as far as sports tournaments go, we've been doing sports tournaments. People have been coming in from other states. We have a very strong sports tournament committee under the direction of Mike Blevins. And what we've run into the most is people not wearing their masks. And this became a real problem because people are coming from different locations. Believe me, we have enough signage for them to know as soon as they come in what the rules are. It's not through lack of signage. Sometimes I think our park is a huge, big sign. But you got to do what you got to do. But how we fixed it the one weekend when it was becoming a problem because all the neighbors were calling and driving by and saying, folks aren't using their masks. Why are you bringing in these people? They're not using the masks. The officials stopped the game and told the parents and any players that did not have their mask on in the time that they were supposed to, that they would be removed or then the game was not going forward.
There you go.
Groups did not do it and they went home. So for those of you wondering what to do, put your foot down and have the official do that. And that's really the best way we had of handling that. Also, we've been dealing with capacity issues. And when we lowered our gym capacity, originally a half of the gym was 250 just for a gym where it had been originally 500, but that's people standing side by side. So yesterday we just changed it down to 50 people for every court. And we feel we can manage 50 people and still keep the social distancing and everything we need to. So staff brought that to our attention. We looked at it and then we got it approved and we got it approved through the health department because we run everything by them. So that worked out well. And also what we've dealt with the most as far as financially, because we're losing so much in revenue, which we knew we would, but we're seeing that a lot of the programs that are going at a minimum, not the max. And if you're focusing on cost recovery, you realize you make your money once it gets past the minimum and up to the max. So we are offering programs. They're just a lot smaller, and but they're in the sports programs are going very well. The tournaments are going, everything is going very well. And the events, we're adapting them. And I think the question was, when is it going to come back? Sports are almost here. When they change to wrestling, basketball, and tackle football, that will change. I think special events is pretty far out to get back to big, large special events.
Yeah.
But honestly, now I will say one thing is when we were looking at our wine festival that we have in always the third weekend in May, I apologize. We're still advertising for it. Staff said, should we advertise it? Said, yes, we need to be hopeful and we think it will go. If it's canceled, it was canceled this year, we can say that. But we're moving forward at least as far as the promotion of that special event, which is really our signature event for our department.
Well, this is great that you brought this up, but every one of you has addressed something that has affected the public with mental health. This is so important. And I was talking to a staff person at NRPA about this just 3 days ago, and they're even more and more addressing this for mental health. Every one of you have seen something with your citizens, and we're also going to need to address it with our staffs and some of us out there in this field. So I think that's coming. So stay tuned. But again, thank you all for your responses in depth, because that's what our folks out there need. So thank you so much. We're going to move to a great time of interaction and polls. And Anne-Marie, take that back.
Absolutely. And it's interesting what you said about everybody sharing, because we are getting some really fun feedback from the audience. I was just going to share with you guys. Laura Barber said she is absolutely blown away at the way that you have taken the control of electronics, and kind of joke that, it's too bad you're such a slacker. I know she's saying that tongue in cheek. So that's pretty funny.
Give me your address.
Absolutely loves the idea of the senior parade and the equipment loan, Rachel, that you talked about. Lots of really cool comments, Rachel, about the play kits, and we'll have some questions about those during the question area. There are some questions about that. And Rosalind's very sad about losing wine in the woods also.
Yeah. It's a heartbreaker.
A lot of great comments about all of your energy and your ideas that you've been contributing. So thank you. It's great to hear that that's resonating with our audience. So for our audience, we're going to go ahead and launch some poll questions. So let's go ahead and launch the first one. Panelists, you can vote on this as well. And this one is about collecting data. So you can choose up to 3. This is a multiple choice question, but if you had the opportunity to collect data at your parks, which 3 data sources would be most valuable to your work? Usage data, demographic data of users, user attitude and satisfaction levels, users' reasons for visiting, health and wellness outcomes, park design or program feedback, or maintenance needs. And this is really interesting. I know you guys can't see this, but I can see as people are voting how the needles are shifting on some of these answers. So,
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. It looks like data, just from what I can see so far, and we'll give you guys just a couple more seconds here. I see some more answers coming in, so I don't want to cut anybody short. But it is amazing to me to see how even across a lot of these actually. So it looks like the voting is stopped. We'll give it 3, 2, 1, and let's show you guys what happened. So park usage data is the top, but you'll see the rest of them are all really, really close there. So very good to see that. Interesting that health and wellness outcomes was one of the least popular, but certainly usage data and depending on what your needs would be for the data, I can see how that would be varied. So with that in mind, we're going to launch the second poll, which is, what would be your main goals for using the data that you had procured? So would it be to secure funding? And again, you can choose up to 3 here. Secure funding, persuade and advocate your value, prioritize resources, target partners, track performance and evaluate impact, share outcomes to constituents and funders, improve design or programming, or inform future needs. So a lot of good options there. There's really no bad options there, but if you could choose your top 3 goals for using the data that you were able to procure, what would those be? And again, the voting is still really active here, so we'll give you a couple more minutes to vote on those. All right, so we'll stop the voting in 3, 2, 1, and let's share those results. So interesting to see improved designs or programming was the top one there. Targeting partners was the least popular answer, and all the others kind of fall somewhere in that 40-ish%, 30 to 40%. So lots of great opportunities there for data and research. Jody, let's get our panel involved in a research question. Take it away.
Absolutely. Well, and again, I'm glad we're addressing the programming on the show today, because that's obviously in the high numbers and the leader right now. So, and on the research, we're kind of transitioning and we're going through the pandemic, but now when we come out the other side, what does it look like and what are we going to have data-wise? So this third question deals with the pandemic is teaching us all about running and not only running our business lives, but our personal lives. But in parks and recreation business, what are we doing differently? And what role do you feel parks and recreation will play in the up and coming future research? And what, it really comes into the heart of it. Probably we're going to research some things we've never looked at before. So again, we'd really like to have your opinions. Rachel, please lead us off on this. You all are pretty advanced on this area.
Yeah, so full disclosure, I was raised by 2 professors. So
there you go.
Yeah, so you know, every decision you make, including who to go to prom with, is data informed. So this is kind of how that works. But yeah, you know, I've been really fortunate to link myself up with two fantastic women, Dr. Jackie Inescu and Dr. Mary Sweetman, who have been, you know, like me, asking different questions. Again, I mentioned before that when things were shut down and the pandemic kind of really hit us, our department took that as an opportunity to step back and say, now is the opportunity. We've known for a while that what we were doing was actually, you know, our traditional service model, our delivery model for recreation was actually, in some ways, causing harm to our community. This whole pay-to-play structure that we've all been kind of boxed into based on funding requirements was causing more of a divide in our community, and we could see it with our own eyes, but we couldn't necessarily figure out how to navigate our way out of it. And then COVID hit, and all of a sudden everything was wiped out. So it was our opportunity to kind of reassess and start again. And we really started looking at a community first design. So what if we redesign our model with the community at the nucleus? So this means, you know, we're going to bring recreation to you. We're going to have it in neighborhoods. We're going to really focus on those who are higher need. We're going to take that equity lens. Thanks to Jackie, who created this spreadsheet and kind of got this is what happens. I just blub, and then she comes back with an email and has everything in this succinct way where I'm like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. And so we actually we had an innovation tracking sheet, and we wanted to make sure that it hit our markers. So we talked a little bit about what were outcomes. We want health and wellness was a priority, and we found these priorities, by the way, by surveying our community. Resilience was another priority, so making sure that people had that ability to kind of take control over their own health and wellness. And then that community connection, people were craving. I mean, my other panelists have mentioned this before, they were feeling isolated. You know, they really wanted to feel connected, not only to their neighbors, to their family, but to their community. And then we kind of in there hit our different targets. So how does this initiative fit here, and does that fit here? And then we kind of lay it out and figure out where our gaps were and how we could support that. So since then, with the support of these two brilliant women, we've applied for a research grant, and we just got notification last week. We got it, which is really exciting.
Right. Yeah.
So we're working hard on that now, and you know, specifically we wanted to know this new model and the way that our department specifically has responded to the pandemic. What has been the impact, and what has been the impact most importantly on those most vulnerable in our community? You know, to pare it down even more, part of the research is looking at single mothers in our community who are living below the poverty line, but expanding it beyond that to say, you know, are we actually meeting the requirements that our communities have set out for us? I do need to say that when we first started moving forward in this way, I had to hire staff, extra staff. We had to hire staff early for our summer. We became so much more relevant. We had people that we hadn't heard from reaching out and saying, you know, we need your support. And for the first time, recreation was seen as the leaders as part of the solution, which for me has been the largest part, the biggest, the most exciting part of this whole pandemic, if I can say that. Has been that finally people are understanding that recreation should be a right. Access to recreation should be a fundamental right for our communities, and has massive impacts on how people are able to not just survive, but thrive in times of crisis. And we see this all over. We see this globally. You know, the work that was done with theater in the Rwandan genocides, the work that was done to create community around poverty along the train tracks in Delhi. There is this data that's out there that shows this, and now I think we're hoping to collect it enough so that, you know, on one of the poll results around funding, when we're out there advocating for the relevancy of recreation, we'll have that information. So I'm super excited about this.
Well, you all are definitely the leader in some of this. And that's one thing that we really needed you to be on this show, because we wanted to hear about that. Canada has such a great plan ahead with working with Play for All people and working through all your logistics throughout your country. So thank you so much, because you have a major leadership role for our industry and our field. Thank you. Let's go ahead and move over. Laura, go ahead and give us some input on this.
Yeah, and Rachel, I do want to commend you on all the things you're doing with research. I'm trying to get our staff. We have a few things that we do with research. We actually met our evaluation team today that we want to expand on what research we're doing and focusing on what's the best way to do that. But I will say, when I started my career in therapeutic recreation, when I was doing leisure counseling, I got most of my material from Canada. They were just eons above.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not going to say what century it was in, no, but it really was, it was helpful. So Canada's, I have always looked, has been way advanced regarding research, specifically having to do with leisure. So when we look at what I think, as far as what research we may get from this or may need to follow, is how to handle the programs with individuals with disabilities. I worry greatly about how COVID has affected them as far as socialization. I will talk a little bit later about that when we recognize staff, but that's a real problem. And how is that affecting their quality of life, when it could be the time that they were with us in a therapeutic recreation social club could have been the highlight of their week. And now we're unable to provide that service because, at least in person, because we can't maintain the COVID guidelines. So how to handle programs with individuals with disabilities and is the best way we can, and how is that affecting them as they will return back into full programming. Also, research in social equity and relating that as far as access to programs. Making sure that's at the forefront of what we're doing. And also research in handling the active aging community over 55. We changed the name of our senior programs several years ago to active aging, because we did not want to use the term senior, and we wanted to focus a lot on the recently retired and newly retired folks. But research in handling the active aging community over 55, and what programs do we provide for them that they want to see. We've conducted a lot of focus groups to find out in that group of people who recently retired what they want to do, and then our staff have literally created the programs for them around what they wanted to do. Also, research on the impact of wearing a mask while participating in a program for an extended period of time. And I will say, kind of nonchalantly, but when we have meetings, we have not had staff meetings face-to-face traditionally. If we do, it's every now and then. But we may be talking around the office, and then we go in and to our WebEx meeting. And you know what the best part of the WebEx meeting is? You don't have to have your mask on.
That's right. That's
So
right.
you gotta look for the good in everything. There's
That's
a
right.
good in everything. So that's the main thing I could say that's good about a mask, is you don't have to wear it if you're doing a WebEx. Also, looking at the impact for staff moving from working at home and teleworking, and then moving back into the office, depending on what job you do in recreation and parks. Our park maintenance staff and parks facility staff have been back for a long time, but our programmers and administrators have been able to telework. But it isn't just easy to wake up one day and telework and then the next day come into work, or all of a sudden, what it was for everyone, just dealing with teleworking all the time. And
That's right.
I know I found for me, and I feel myself as an expert of managing my time and multiple priorities, and I love that. But I found even in my home that it's like the workday would end and it would just go into the night, and then the nights would go into the weekends. And it wasn't till July that I realized, oh my gosh, I just want to break. So I found that I used my work environment. I made my living room into my new office.
Yeah.
My husband works in the basement. He's fine down there. But I use that environment. And when I do get a call after hours or I'm working on the weekend, I go sit in that living room, because that I'm making myself work goes in the living room. And then when I leave the living room, then I can be in my normal quote, whatever life that is. But those are things that we've had to adapt to that we never thought. And it did affect people of when does the work end?
That's right.
I get a lot of work done by face-to-face. Now, everything I do, it's a text or an email,
That's right.
you know, and it makes it a lot harder. But you still need the same outcomes at the same amount of time. So how do you do that? Also,
You're right, Laura. This is all affecting us. I mean, I think we'll have to definitely run some research.
I'd like to see how that is, and then causing stress for high-performing employees. I would see employees that were rock stars having difficulty with the decisions that they have to make with their children, with coming to work, with not coming to work, and everything that goes along with that, and taking care of family members. And so that level of stress has affected people that I never would have encountered that, and to be sympathetic to that, but also what's the best way of handling that. And I guess I'd love to see some research done, because somebody could make a lot of money if you figured this out. What's the quickest way to raise spirits through recreation? Now, I'm thinking it may be walking, but wouldn't it be great to know, hey, you're feeling bad? Go walk around the block for 30 minutes. You're guaranteed to feel better. And a lot of people say that, but it'd be nice to, that'd be a nice tagline for what we advertise, to have folks know, I'm feeling bad, so stop sitting there feeling bad and go do this, or go
Absolutely.
do this. And a half an hour later, check in, because you're going to be feeling better.
Well, and I think all that is wrapped up in the mental health. So we've got to really definitely address that.
So
thank you.
That's what I have.
And Lakita, what do you think about this? Because I think both of them have a lot of good points that we need to look at.
I don't have much to add to this, but what I would like to say is that, just piggybacking what Rachel shared, that we do programs to help solve community problems. So that is the attitude that I have approached all of our programming, and that helps the team connect better with the community, because if we're not programming for the community, then why are we programming? And then I really want to share that we don't often tell our stories well in Parks and Recreation, using the data and analytics. So we have to find those champions in our agencies and our departments that are good at pulling that information together and identifying what do we want to use this information for. We have a lot of stuff out here in our registration systems, in the memberships, but what are we going to use the information for? So I think that having that template, and I'm hoping that as we continue to work together, that someone develops that template so we know, okay, what is it that we should be collecting so we can have a comprehensive report. And lastly, people of color all across this country are suffering with two pandemics at the same time. We are seeing ourselves, of course, the impact that COVID-19 has had on those communities where there are health disparities, where there are food deserts, where the health and wellness was already being impacted by lack of access. How will recreation help bridge those gaps so that we can create environments and communities where diversity, inclusion, and equality is not just something that we're talking about, but something that we're actually committed to doing? Parks and Recreation is essential to quality of life, and we need to be at the table to use that research to solve these issues.
Well, you make some great points. I tell you, Laura, Rachel, and Lakita, what we appreciate is you pouring your heart out and telling us from the gut level and heart level what we need to be looking at for the future, because you're right on target in so many ways, mentally especially, but also equity-wise, and making sure, because again, we can bridge those gaps.
Yes.
We're going to go ahead and switch on, and Anne-Marie, it is all yours. This is one of our favorite parts of the show.
Is one of our favorite parts of the show. You hear all these amazing things, and of course, none of us can do amazing things alone. So I'm going to share, and I better make sure I share the right presentation here, because I'm going to tell you, I have something really special to share with you guys at the end of the show. Don't want to give that away too early. A little hint for you there. So we are going to share some good news in parks about great people. And this is the opportunity that our panelists have to talk about a person or team that they work with, and the wonderful effects and contributions that they make. So let's go ahead and get started with you, Laura.
Oh, so excited. Took me about a minute to figure out who I was going to highlight. She has been an endless resource and support of myself, but primarily her team and the whole department since this all started. It's Nicola Morgul. She's the superintendent of child care and community services, and she oversees therapeutic recreation, teens, and active aging. So what has she done as a team just in the pandemic, not to mention all the other stuff? She started off with policies and guidelines and creation of the emergency child care that I was talking about earlier. And within 1 to 2 weeks, we opened up an emergency child care for persons that needed that, who were emergency workers. Also created a safe environment for staff and children in this newly created program. There's one thing to create it, but you also need to convince the staff and everyone that this is what a good place a safe place for everyone to be, and the people who are participating. She led an in-house committee to provide a virtual training of all summer camp. She led an in-house committee to create an alternative to traditional summer camps to get into the schools and provide childcare. We didn't know up until 1 week before we were starting whether we were going to be able to get into schools or not. So we need to have a backup plan if we couldn't, and how are we going to handle that? She worked closely with the director, Raul Delerme, and myself to create policy regarding ongoing fluid situations, and also to keep the staff updated and transparent. She worked closely with the county food access team to arrange for food and at times breakfast at all of our camps. That's something, as I said earlier, we never had before. She created a new program in the schools called Rec Zone, replacing the traditional childcare for all parents in and around the area. That's just started this fall. We have 8 different sites for that in the schools, which we had to fight to get in, but we're in there. She took the lead in writing policies for open spaces for sports and permanent fields, and to provide a consistent approach to all the other things she had written. She oversees a team of the most high-profile programs in our facilities when we lost space in the schools. So that team had to quickly figure out how they were going to get around that. And one of the pictures you'll see off to the right here, that's our rec zone. As you see, all the kids are in there having a good time. And the picture up top, under Nicola's leadership is also Susan Potts and the Recreation, Inclusion, and TR team. And one of the biggest TR events for adults with developmental disabilities has been dances. We usually have 6 a year, and they are coveted. So Susan and her team got a DJ, and this is just one of many pictures of, did a virtual dance with this group. And I'm sorry you don't have the video of it, but just to see everybody rocking out, you could see the parents in the background smiling, but these are adults. They just wanted to be with their friends, wave to their friends, and dance and have a good time. It just brought so much joy. You just look at that and it's just joy all over the place for everyone involved. And also, Susan oversees the team that does recreation inclusion, and we still were able to do that through COVID, just on a smaller scale where we could handle all the COVID rules with that. So that is Nicola Morgul and her great team.
Wow, that is, I mean, that is an amazing list of accomplishments there.
Is.
What an awesome asset to your team, and thank you, Nicola, for everything that you do. Okay, Rachel, take it away.
Yeah, just quickly, there's three items I wanted to highlight. So the flag that is on the screen there, that's the flag of the Mi'kmaq people. So I'm speaking to you today from Mi'kma'ki, which otherwise is known as Nova Scotia. It's really important for me that I acknowledge this, because as our country kind of goes through reconciliation, and we do that within our own department and take a look at what that means for, again, reviewing our programs and purpose, it's kind of given me the chance to be really humble, and that has really impacted my work. So I need to acknowledge that. Yeah, it's had a lot of impact on me. The lovely woman in the middle is Rachel Watson. She's the executive director of Recreation Nova Scotia, which is our kind of governing organization in this province. Crystal's fantastic. She hasn't been on that long, only a couple years or so, and she single-handedly, I would argue, has kind of changed the trajectory and allowed for people to have hard conversations and taking really meaningful approaches. So as the organization approaches its strategic planning, for example, stakeholders who will be part of that planning are all required to go through unconscious bias training so that we're all aware of where we're coming from and the best way to move forward in order to best serve our communities and our sectors. So she definitely needs to be highlighted. And I didn't have a picture of my team. They would probably kill me if I did that, but but that is our logo, the Parks and Recreation for our town in Kentville. And I can't even begin to tell you how proud I am to work with the people that I do. You know, our theme this year is pivot. So we'll be going off in a direction, and then all of a sudden, well, we have to throw that plan out the window, time to make another plan. And, you know, I can't imagine going through such a stressful time with another group of people. You know, one thing when we talk in our department meetings around, you know, kind of what are our priorities and how do we want to do things, one thing that always comes up is that if we are not having fun, we're not doing our jobs correctly. And this is why we choose recreation. You know, this is why we're not all in finance, I'm not going to lie, because we want to be able to kind of live what we give out to the community. So I'm so fortunate to have such a great team who supports all of the crazy things that we've decided to do.
That's awesome. Thank you, Rachel. And I love that. I think we should all take that to heart. If we're not having fun, then we're not doing our jobs right. That's absolutely true. Okay, Lakita.
I would like to take this opportunity to recognize my awesome team, the Adaptive Recreation Team for the Richland County Recreation Commission, Mr. Andrew Scott, Marilyn Roberts, Veronica Dargan, Diana Sly, and Delana Volware. Their commitment to individuals with special needs and their flexibility in this pandemic has been something that I'm extremely proud of. We have hit the reset button, and we are moving forward with seeing how we can expand the programs to meet the needs of our individuals with special needs throughout our county instead of in one building or one space, making this a priority. And they do this every day with a smile on their face. They've just moved into the administrative offices this week so that they can assist me in making this a priority for our community. And I just want to shout them out because not only of the work they've done prior to the pandemic, but during the pandemic, and I'm proud to know what they're going to do, proud and looking forward to what they're going to do in the future. So hats off to my adaptive recreation team.
Awesome. Yes, we echo that here at Good News in Parks. Thank you so much to that team. And thanks to all of you for highlighting your teams. That is absolutely, you know, again, one of our most fun things that we do. So we have a couple minutes here. Let's take a question from the audience, and then I'm going to share some more exciting good news coming up. Let's see here. There were actually several questions, Rachel, about the play kits that you guys had put together. So someone asked you if you could repeat the 3 groups that you deliver the kits to. It was seniors, youth, and another one?
Families. But I need to preface it. So you can go to www.kentville.ca and go to Parks and Recreation, and we actually have the kits uploaded to our site if folks want to know what's in there.
Oh, awesome.
And then you can
Great.
say hi.
Right.
But I need to preface this because people are always asking us for what's in this kit. These kits are designed specifically with our community in mind. So you don't just take them because, and then, you know, print them all off and get the equipment and send it out, because you'll be sending people to me and I would love it. But that's how it works. So you're more than welcome to do that. But the other piece too is that we did this after talking with our partners. So first and foremost, you need to engage in your community, with your community and the partners that you're working with, and then design it from that level.
That's awesome. Terrific. The other one was a specific one about following rules. I think it was Laura, you were talking about when you have events and making sure that people follow rules. What do you do? And this is for any of you actually, when you're having an event and you've posted the rules, but there's that 1 or 2 maybe pushy people that don't want to follow the rules. How are you handling that in your departments? Is it through police? Is it through discussions? Just how do you deal with those situations?
Well, the first thing, as far as staff, we do reiterate, for some reason they may not know what the rule is. So repeating what the rule is. And then if they are just blatant about it, and you could say, I'm sorry to enter or to do this, this is what we need you to do. If it gets to the point where they get belligerent, we do have park rangers, but if it's going to get more than that, we do call the police. If some folks definitely don't want to do that, it will be a problem. And I think that's what bothers the staff so much. They're not used to being police. I mean, there's one thing about following rules of conduct, but in this situation, it's a whole different level of confrontation. And so we will bring our park rangers in, or if we realize that, like that one location where they were going to stop the game, park rangers were there, other people were coming in to provide more assistance to kind of retrain and advise. But even the health department said when they do go out, they're pretty much reminding them what they're supposed to be doing. But it's awkward, and I'm not sure everyone's prepared at that point to be a police officer in that.
Sure.
That's right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, we are actually, wow, this has been like such a fluid and great
Wow.
almost out of time, which is crazy. But I do want to share some really good news with you guys and kind of a sneak peek, actually. So we actually have 2 episodes we're going to tell you about this time. So more great news. Join us on October 15th at 1 Eastern for our next episode, which is called Collaboration and Communication. With Bill Folsch from Morris, New Jersey, Daryl Crittenden from Norfolk, Virginia, and Stacy Leardick from New Braunfels, Texas. You can see the address to register there. And again, we always like to point out where the certificate of completions come from, docs@email.pandadoc.com, so that you guys can whitelist that and make sure that those get through. And now I can have a little bit of a drum roll. Super excited to tell you about our very first special edition, which will be October 26th. That is the Monday before NRPA at 1 o'clock, where we will discuss everything Land and Water Conservation Fund with this panel of experts. So we're gonna have Linda Landerman and Eric Feldbaum with Nazorlo. We have Joel Lynch with the National Park Services and Kyle Simpson, who is NRPA's Senior Government Manager. So you can come and learn all about the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And please share this with your friends and colleagues. This is going to be an amazing and informative episode. So you can see it's the same, playcore.com/events. You can look for Good News in Parks and then look for the episode you want to sign up with. And we are so excited about this, right, Jody? I mean, just wow, bursting with excitement. So of course we want to thank our future guests. So Jody, our current guests. So Jody, if you want to take it and take us out.
Okay, everybody on the screen? Anne-Marie?
Yeah.
Can you put the screen on?
Yes, of course.
There
we
we
go.
are. Now
There we go.
Live again. This is it. Ladies, you are the best of the best, and thank you for a great show today. I don't know where the time went, but we will be back together soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you again to our studio audience for being here. We'll see you next time.